Cool. Someone who works with sound all the time gets easily distracted by sound. So we get iMovie and GarageBand. They're the programs we're working with at the moment. Pretty much your first step, super simple. Scan your music. We've already spoken about that. Get your music. I'll just open the chat window as well, so make sure. Pro Tools first is a mini free Pro Tools for PC users. Thanks, Michaela. That's wonderful. Really good to know. So yeah, check out that Pro Tools first and just have a play, see how you go. Most of these principles you'll be able to apply to other programs. So first step, scan your music. You guys know how to do that. So I'm using one of Michaela's tunes, Watch What Happens. And this is just a preview via the Mac. And as you know, you can navigate to my little article to work out how to do all of that. But you guys know it, and you masters it, which is good. Very good. Step 2, obtain the backing track. So find your accompanist or Reverb editor and send them through the sheet music. Pretty straightforward. Get your piano backing track. And now we start to work in GarageBand. So I've brought this down to 3 steps: preparing the file, recording, and exporting. A lot of this will be super mundane, step-by-step process, but I don't want to take anything for granted. So I'm just going to shrink something. So go. Cool. So the first thing you want to do, create a new project, empty project, and click choose. Very straightforward. And when we're preparing the file, if you check I want to hear my instrument as I play and record, it means that when you have headphones on, you'll hear the vocal being played through. And some people do prefer hearing themselves, some people don't. Sort of a matter of preference, really. So you select the microphone, check the box, and click create. Depending on what, say, headphones or external microphones you've got connected, this little box will be different. But right now, this was based on me just recording on my laptop with no headphones, no microphones plugged in. So it just says input 1, and input 1 being the microphone input. Then we get what will be created is this is your project file. You can ignore everything along the bottom here and to the left. You don't really need to pay any attention to that. But your audio track runs from left to right here. There's your vocal track. And we can see that this button is orange, which means that you've got the track playing through your headphones. And what it does is it puts the volume way down so as to avoid a feedback loop. Once you've created that track, you're going to hit plus and create a separate track. And exactly the same thing. This is actually going to be for your piano track. So you can uncheck, I want to hear my instrument, because we're not recording something new. We're actually going to drag the audio in. And by doing that, you'll hear the piano track through your headphones anyway. Cool. So left to right, vocal track, and then we've got your backing track here. And so we'll pop that through in just a moment. So ideally, you've received your backing track by now. If you've allowed the programs to be side by side, the easiest way to do this is actually to put the program into full screen and then drag the other program in. I'll show you guys how to do that later. But otherwise, just click and drag, make the folder into split screen, or just Alt-Tab and hold down the file and drag it in. Either way, you just want to get that file and drag it into the second track that you've created. And then ideally, you line it up with the number 1. If you can, if you make that happen, it just makes the whole process a lot easier. Once that's lined up, it gets put into that field, and you'll be able to see the waveform, which will just pretty much show you how loud and soft certain parts of the music are. At this point, because I did the tutorial with the button check that you can hear yourself, this is set to orange, but because you guys won't have that checked, it won't be set to orange, and that volume bar will be set to full volume, so you'll be able to hear it properly. Right now, and the next thing you want to do is actually click the audio 1 track. Make sure you click it, and make sure you click the gray area. Once it's clicked, it'll go light gray, and that'll make sure that you've got it clicked and selected. At that point, it's probably it's good to actually rename the track just so everything's nice and organized. So at that point, you just double click the audio 1 and then type in vocal track. Pretty simple. If anyone needs me to slow down or explain any terms, just shout out and I'll go do that. So cool. So we've relabeled that vocal. There's a button up here that's on by default, 1, 2, 3, 4. That will just put depending on the tempo that you've selected, that'll put a counting in before the recording. The only reason this would be helpful, there's a few different reasons, but the main reason would be maybe you do need the count in because you need to sing immediately. But if the piano track has a bit of an introduction, you don't really need to count in. You just record it and don't worry about the count in because the piano will act as introduction. So for a song like this, there is a there's a 1 bar or 2 bar intro. So I just suggest unchecking the 1, 2, 3, 4, mainly because it's going to count in a set tempo that's different to your backing track because this backing track has been not recorded in this file. So it'll count in at 120 beats per minute, but that doesn't mean that the song will be in 120 beats per minute. So preferably you just uncheck that. That'll just make things a lot easier. So right now it's unchecked. Here's how it looks when the count in is removed. Very good, Daniela. Very specific. At that point, you need to make sure, this is what's called the playhead, this vertical line. Make sure that that is at the start before you begin. In order to make sure it's at the start, you just press enter. If you want to play the track, you just hit spacebar. So say you just want to listen to the backing track, you just hit spacebar. To get the playback head to the beginning, you press enter. It starts at the beginning. Then all you need to do is click record, but make sure the vocal track is selected and is that lighter shade of gray. This was my sample recording. There's obviously nothing happening here, but presumably yours would be much more interesting as you're recording vocals. You get to the end of your recording, press enter. And just a little tip, if you're using your computer's microphone, click the stop button rather than using the keyboard because when I'm having to edit these files to video and you're using the microphone on the computer or even a microphone that's close by, I'll generally hear the tapping of a keyboard right at the end. So try to either leave a bit of space or avoid using the keyboard and actually just click stop. Okay. Cool, so go to vocal track. At that point, we click share at the top, export song to disk, and we'll just talk a little bit about the different feeds here. So ideally, you give your file name something distinguishable. I just called it Watch What Happens, and select where you want to save it. If you want to save it in one of maybe your output folders, that's helpful as well. And then we'll talk a little bit about the different qualities. So here's just an example of the 4 different qualities that we have. AAC I actually don't know quite a lot about, so don't worry about it. MP3 is the one that you're most familiar with. MP3 is a compressed audio format, so it'll be, the fact that it's compressed means that it'll be a smaller file size, but also it means that the quality won't be as high as it would be if it wasn't compressed. Benefits of that is that the file size is small, so it means that when you're sending it over the internet, then you're not going to have as many issues. And then you've got AIFF and waveform. AIFF is great if you have what's called markers within the file. Markers are little like first chorus that you can create little markers. We won't worry too much about that now, but it does save the marker content and also saves the tempo data, which is very handy. And a wave is similar in the sense that both of these files are uncompressed, so it would be a larger file size, but the quality will be maintained. This is really ideal if, say, you're collaborating with someone and you want the files to be the best quality they can be. Generally, when I'm creating piano backing tracks, I'll do it as MP3 if they're just for rehearsals or something, but if they're performance, then I'll export them as an AIFF or a WAV. If it needs to be done quickly, and you need the file size to be small, opt for the MP3. That's going to be the most popular that you'll end up going for. Export the song in folder. That's pretty much it. It's pretty straightforward. So let me actually talk you. I'll show myself going through that process so you get a bit of an idea. Does anyone have any questions before I move on? No. Cool. I know some of the instructions are a bit silly, like do this, create this. Rehan?
Can we do this with our GarageBand on the phone as well, or is this just like for computers, like Mac?
You'll be able to do it on your phone. I haven't looked extensively into how the importing of files works on the phone. But with the iPhone, there is the accessibility to the Files app on the iPhone or the iPad. Yeah. So I would actually find a way to get the backing track into the Files app, and then GarageBand should be able to access that Files app, and then you'll be able to drag in or import the backing track. Does that make sense?
Cool. Yeah.
And this is what's called multi-track recording. So multi-track means that you can record multiple things at the same time. So you'll be able to do that on your phone as well. So yeah, I'll just show you it in action. Very exciting. Yes, Michaela, I'm going to talk a bit about equipment. And Charlie, this is just how to record vocals on Garageband, but I'm sure you probably already worked that out. Sorry to out you. All right, good questions. So I'm going to set up a new project. My biggest thing when it comes to recording, and especially being creative individuals as we are, we can't let the equipment govern our process. Our process governs the equipment. So it's quite easy to be inundated with the amount of options and the amount of settings that are involved here. The least you can do is play around. Absolutely, but it's very easy to get overwhelmed and to wind up with a highly produced track that doesn't sound like you and doesn't sound live and sounds very impersonal, mainly because you had a bit of fun and you kept adding EQ settings and compressor settings and you didn't really know what they did. I mean, I still do that. I mean, to me, it's just experimenting. It's like painting, like, okay, I'll pick that color, or pick that color, I'll see what happens. My main objective with Broadway Plugged In last month was that I needed to get a sound that was as real and intimate as possible while still being an accurate audio reading and not picking up sort of odd room sounds. Okay, so for me, I applied a little bit of reverb, and I actually don't think I made much difference to the EQ at all. But in order for me to judge the reverb, I had to line up the audio and the visual, and then I had to see how it made me feel. Because it's easy to do it when it's just audio. You're like, cool, that sounds great. Bit of reverb. Yep, that sounds really sweet. Everything's blending. By the time you actually set the visual, the brain does the thing that the brain does and goes, that's not quite right. That person's not singing in the room. That sounds like they're singing in some sort of giant hall. And we're very good at assessing those anomalies, and people are not conscious of it generally, but they'll know that something's not quite right. And therein lies the question, do you want to create something that's highly intimate and authentic, or do you want to create something that's highly produced and I guess more about the sort of oral landscape? Neither are right or wrong, but because we're working in a medium of storytelling, we need to be careful not to get hung up with production. The reason that we're going through this now is obviously due to isolation, social distancing, is that there's a stronger need to learn how to navigate, how to do all of this stuff online, okay? And I've seen many videos where someone just uses their Mac laptop and some audio playing in the background. The piano track's not loud enough, the audio quality is a bit not quite right, and I'm not really getting a good blend. Obviously that works and that's fine, there's no issues there. But then at the same time, you get someone who's like doing a really clean recording. I'm not feeling very intimate with them, and I'm not feeling like I connect with them because it's almost too perfect. That makes sense. For just a little bit about equipment. So I've got what's called an audio interface. And does anyone else own an audio interface here? Nope. So it's a little box that, yeah, Lauren does. I thought you would. I was like, surely there's someone. Lauren, do you mind letting us know? Are you microphone enabled?
I am. I'm actually about to pack up, but I'm still at work and nobody else is here, so I can talk.
What interface do you have off the top of your head? What color is it?
It's black.
It's always black. I can never tell the black ones.
I can't remember what it's called. I
Does it have
I
two
just
microphone
told someone
inputs or
what
something?
it was. Wait, let me bring up Facebook because I literally just told one of my
That's
friends
great.
what I had a couple of days ago. Keep talking amongst yourselves. This may take a moment.
So I use a Audient ID14. Don't get that. It's too expensive. The guy was like, it's the best preamps you'll ever want. It'll make your music sound amazing. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about, but I need one. So here's my money. And he said, if it's not good, return it. And I went home and I listened and thought,
Hang on, I've lost sound. I don't know what happened.
Okay, let me know if you need anything, Lauren. Anyway, the idea with the interface is that it's interfaces between a microphone and your computer. Because generally the end of a microphone is what's called an XLR input or output. And that cable is not able to interface with the computer. Now, of course, there are many condenser microphones that go straight to USB. If you can find one of those, great. That's nice and easy. That's actually kind of doing 2 for 1, really, because it's acting as an interface as well as an input. I use the interface because you are 22MK2. Awesome. Yeah, that's a wonderful brand. That's good. Behringer or something? I don't know. Something. So most interfaces will have 2 inputs. That's pretty much all you need. Okay. Realistically, you should only need 1, but having 2 means that potentially if you wanted to record some piano at the same time or have someone else play like another instrument, guitar, or do some vocals or something, you could plug both of them in. The general kind of live vocal mic that I'm using now is a Shure SM58, or it's kind of like a knockoff brand, but you know, the Shure SM58 is the one to go for. That they are, I won't go too much into this stuff because there's so many other people that will do much better than me explaining it. But basically every microphone has a certain field around it in terms of how it's going to receive the best sound. The sound that I think it's cardioid, I believe it's called, that these kind of microphones emanate is pretty much just to the sides of the face, and you have to kind of get straight in there. It's not as direct as like a shot mic, but it's not as omnidirectional as a condenser mic, which will get pretty much sort of like a figure 8 around the whole mic. Most vocalists will actually go for something like that, even like podcasts and stuff. And it's on my to-buy list, so I was working on it. Did I miss anything, Michaela? Do you think that shed some light on your question about equipment? Oh, she's tapping. Good. Cool. All right. Well, look, I'm sure you don't need me to do it all again, but let me at least give you a little bit more of an idea of how it looks when it's in action, I guess. So I'm going to create my audio track. Oh, good. I'm going to be cheeky and use Command D as a bit of a shortcut to duplicate the audio track. Don't tell anyone. I'm going to take off the listening through the headphones to the keyboard. And I'm going to keep it for the vocals. You can see that there's a signal coming through. That's the microphone here. At least I hope it is. Basically, what you need to do, if you've got external equipment plugged in, now you can do this with a set of like Bluetooth headphones. They don't have to be Bluetooth. Yeah, sure, Charlie. I'll do that, Charlotte. Any form of headphones is quite important in the recording process, which will kind of go into my next point in a second as to like, do you wear headphones? Do you not wear headphones? How do I get the best sort of acting sensibility whilst I'm trying to record some audio? Again, you always need to preface, or you always need to prioritize storytelling. Okay? If you get too hung up about all this production stuff, you'll get distracted and you won't do the job properly. To make sure that the inputs and the outputs are correct, I go into Garageband preferences and I go into audio MIDI. Right now it's set to built-in output and built-in microphone. So for those, that's just what's in my laptop right now and the speakers coming out. My interface is called Audient. As you can see, I've got many sound drivers. You guys probably have like 1, 2, 3, like 1 to 3 or something. But I'm going to use Audient. Now I'm going to be getting it through my headphones. And the input device has changed to Audient. Now, the Audient is the interface itself, and the microphone's running into that. So now it's picking up. I'm actually going to, there we go. It turns it down as a protection, because if it's too loud, it'll feed back, it'll go through the headphones, and then it'll just keep going, and then we get lots of whistling. Dodie who? What are that? Did I say something weird? Okay. I'm clicking. As in I'm like chopping out. or I'm clicking literally. Okay, you explain that. All right. Okay, just let me know. Is something weird happening? I'm getting yeses and nos. Oh man, you guys I feel like I'm being trolled sometimes. Okay, so you know what? The program's probably getting a bit confused because I'm going through Zoom and Garageband at the moment. So I'd navigate to my backing track, which is going to be hopefully beautifully organized and located in some special folder of yours. Oh God, so many folders. So many folders. Obtain a backing track. I'm going to click and drag. For those playing at home, I just Alt-tabbed so I can just jump between the programs and just click and drag. Here it is. And I'll just share the computer sound. Can you hear that? Can't hear it because the output device needs to be set to Zoom audio device, I believe. Can you hear it? Awesome. You notice how the click, you can hear clicking, or ticking, clicking. So that's a separate tempo, so it doesn't align. It's quite useless. So I'm going to turn the 1, 2, 3 off, and I'm going to turn the metronome off because it's not serving me right now. The way that I approach the recording process, though, with some songs, I will set the metronome and I'll record along with it. That means that if you got a song that I recorded a click with and you dragged it into a project and you changed the tempo marking to the click that I used, you could actually line it up exactly, which is very exciting. So it's kind of very helpful to use clicks for lining things up. Now, then I jump into my first track, I'd hit record, and you know, no sounds really coming through at the moment, so it's kind of hard to demonstrate. And then, as I showed you before, so you hit spacebar to stop, but preferably not, otherwise it gets picked up on the microphone. I go share, export song to disk. It's a weird little term, so sometimes it doesn't make sense. Usually you go to file export, but with a program like this, you have to go share because Apple's all about like sharing the experience and sharing files rather than just export it. So at that point, I name the file, and then I select MP3 for this point, and I'm just going to click export, and then it'll go along. And then I've got, it's still exporting. Name the file, hit spacebar if you want to preview it. Of course, there's no vocals because we didn't do anything. I want to show you, there's a couple of different things you can do, but if you're in iMovie, at this point, I'd actually I'll show you. Get the audio and the video, drag it into iMovie, and then line them up. Okay. Now, the tricky thing here is that if you're using something like Final Cut Pro, there is actually a built-in sync feature that will get the audio that you've recorded from your video and get the audio that you've recorded through GarageBand and automatically sync it. With iMovie, you just have to do it manually. So the question there, this is something you have to experiment on, and it's sort of going into a little bit of extra information right now as we get into filming, but it will tie into, oh, what's that? It will tie into some of the curry stuff. Who's she? My point there being, sorry, is that you just have to clap at the beginning of your recording. But this is where it gets a bit complicated because I said for you to drag to the number 1 on GarageBand, but maybe it'll actually benefit you to drag to, say, 2 or 3. I just think it's nice to line it up with a number, though, rather than making it completely random. That way, when I hit my record, it does, obviously, the input's not working. I'm going to have a clap right at the beginning. The point of this is that this is under the presumption that this is under the presumption that you're filming at the same time as vocal recording. Oh, so sorry. Yes. Sorry, this does my head in, to be honest. That's why Final Cut's really good because it does it automatically. But let me show you. Let me show you what would happen. You'd select your video. Slowly wait. Slowly wait. Whilst it's happening, So I'm going to go... I'm less used to iMovie than I am with Final Cut. But anyway, once you drag, you click the clip, drag it in. Thanks, Michaela, for allowing me to use this. Here's where it's interesting. So if you want to get rid of the audio, there's two ways of doing this. If you want to get rid of the audio of the original video clip, which sometimes you might want to do if you want to overlay the GarageBand audio, you navigate, and I'm just zooming in here, you navigate to this thin line at the bottom, and you just drag it down, get rid of it, turn it down. Alternatively, you detach the audio, right-click detach, and then it creates a separate waveform. Now, this is really good when I actually want to pull in my other audio source. So now I'm actually going to do what I can. These don't line up exactly, by the way. It's much better if I showed you something sort of right from scratch. But I would actually spend a bit of time selecting the video, shift, select the other audio item, and just click and... Oh, it's not agreeing with me. It's not doing what I want. The first one moves. That's why I didn't want to get too hung up about the filming aspect of it. And I reckon because there are going to be people like Lauren who would be able to smash this. It's not really my area of expertise. Especially when I use a built-in function on Final Cut that just automatically syncs it. I did want to mention, though, two kind of ways of approaching this is, do I record the audio whilst I'm filming, whilst I'm acting, or do I record the audio separately and then dub it over? Okay, there's pros and cons to both. If we're not quite mindful of how we record, we might actually be sitting down, a bit hunched over, we sort of got the headphones on, we're not really acting, and then we get this audio that is completely dissonant to the acting that we give. So we need to be conscious of that, which means that when we're recording audio, we need to make sure that we're in the zone, so to speak, all right? We have to be exactly in that space. And if that means standing up and being free, then that's what you need to do. But there begs the question, are my headphone cables long enough? Do I have wireless headphones? The headphone component is really important because it's so that it gets a clean vocal reading. Otherwise, the piano track's gonna leak into the Mac mic, okay? So you can invest in like an audio extension cable. That will actually, for if you've got a cabled pair of headphones, you can get them and then actually plug it into the headphone jack. Your headphones don't need to have a microphone on them. Okay, that's an important point. The headphones don't actually need to have a microphone on them. It's nice if they do. Okay, but also know that you're going to be sacrificing quality for quantity at that point, because you need to ask yourself, how much should I spend on these headphones and microphone, sort of dual set? Are they good quality? Are they just sort of a cheapo thing that I found? In that case, is it better if I just use the Mac microphone, and that's where you go into your GarageBand preferences and change the input, okay? Now, some people, though, will actually have, like, AirPods, for example. Good on them. Very, very bougie life they lead. And they'll just... they'll record and maybe their choice hide the AirPods with their hair. Not everyone does. I don't think it's a big deal, to be honest. But they actually, because it's Bluetooth, it means they can sit the laptop somewhere. The piano track's occurring in their headphones, and they're also recording at the same time, and they're able to stand. They're quite free. Now, when I'm recording something like Broadway Plugged In, I don't just need the video back. I would need the video back and the garage recording back. It's super subtle, right? It's just like, there's all this wisp of hair as well. It's like, I see you. It's 2020, isn't it? So, yeah, so what I'll generally ask for is the garage file back. Now, someone like Lauren, who's just a superstar and went and did and synced her own video and audio and recorded her audio separately and then dubbed over and nailed it. Great, I'm very happy about that. She sent it through. I'm like, cool, Thank you. Someone did, for example, send me through their video of just them singing, and I had to like strip away the audio from the video and then wedge it back over my backing track and then put it back into the video. It was very, it was a bit of a process. Now, no fault of our own. I mean, it's a confusing process as to what I actually need at any given time. So, but for example, if it's a collaborative process, I would just say, you know, just send me through the Garageband file. So at that point, you don't even have to worry about the export. You just have to have the file itself. And the Garageband file, if I've got something saved somewhere, it'll just be a .garageband file, to be honest. You can select that and upload it to Dropbox, Google Drive, whatever you want. Do know that when you upload it to something like Dropbox, it ends up looking like a folder, so, and then it doesn't look like the right file, but it's correct. As soon as the person downloads it on their computer, it will turn into a file. Oh, cool. That's awesome. Which idea? The AirPod? Okay. Yes. So good you were discussing that, as I was probably talking about it. Listening 101, hey? So I'm trying to think if there's anything else I missed. So the contemplation of, do I wear the headphones? Do I, you know, attach to the computer? Different styles will warrant different things. If I'm doing some sort of like moody jazz blues piece, maybe it just makes sense for me to be around the computer and then I'm going to sync it up later. The number one thing though, you have to make sure that they call them transients, the sort of all the little, all the nuances on the recording, especially breath, they have to be the same. And I saw an audition submission come through for Bring It On, and within 2 seconds, I was like, this is overdubbed. She's not singing. And I could tell because it was a highly physical song, like there was a bit of dancing. No, sorry, she was dancing, but her sound was not dancing. I'm like, you're not creating the sound and moving your whole torso. That's not happening. Not only that, the sound sounded like it was right up close to my ears. The idea of reverb makes in the sonic landscape, reverb makes something sound far away. Volume just makes something sound either more present in the mix. And then panning, these are all different facets of the recording process that actually create space in the sonic ear, okay? If someone hasn't applied reverb and they're recording straight here, and then they send me a clip of them in the room and they're a couple meters away, I know instantly there's dissonance. There's oral dissonance. I'm like, I'm getting a sound that doesn't match up with what you're doing. More importantly, her articulation, her expression, her energy behind every single word and vowel didn't match up to the sound that she was creating, because we kind of get lazy, you know, when it comes to that sort of stuff. So just a bit of food for thought. Do you have any questions or anything they'd like to share? Yeah, Jessica.
So pretty much, like I think I know this, but if you're going to be submitting a video of you singing for an audition, you're going to just be doing it live with the camera that you have and sound that you're having in that particular moment. You're not going to do this GarageBand thing.
I think ideally you don't. I agree with you. I think you just use what's in the room.
Yeah.
That's not to say that you can't use GarageBand at the same time to have a piano track running through, as well as maybe an external microphone that just picks up the room sound. Because if it's just picking up the room sound, then it's just going to be a bit better quality than what the Mac is. Or the iPhone.
Yeah.
But the aim of the game is to create something that's slightly more authentic and less produced.
Yeah.
But as people are wanting to express themselves more online and like get themselves out there and showcase themselves in more creative ways, we find that there's a need for multi-tracking and ability to actually record over tracks at the same time. So yeah, that's exactly it. Trying to find that balance.
Yeah. Okay.
Good question.
So as long as like you're like when you record yourself singing the audio, as long as you're acting in that time and act it the same way when you sing it, like what we did for BU, like just as long as it matches and you know it seems real.
Yes, to me baffles me. I mean, like, it's just not a skill that I have. You know, that's for you guys to deal with.
What do you mean?
In the sense that the idea of doing something one way and then absolutely identical the next way,
Yeah.
I'm like, nah, I'm not interested in that. If someone
Yeah.
asks me for piano track and they want me to film it, I'm filming it right then and there. That is the first take I'm taking. That's me recording it.
Yeah,
Because
it's hard because you're gonna do it different every time.
exactly. So that's why I'm like, I usually steer people away from the dubbing over, just
Yeah.
because it takes practice. That's all.
Yeah.
If I'm improvising for a piano track, especially I record the first take, because
Okay.
if I'm improvising, and most of the time I am, unless it's like pure musical theater, then I will record the first take, mainly because I don't want to mess around and record several takes.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be able to recreate an improvisation, you know.
Yeah. Okay.
Good question.
Oh, just another thing, sorry.
Yeah.
If you're doing like when you do a singing video for an audition or whatever, is it weird to have a microphone in front of you and do that or nah?
Is it serving a purpose?
Pardon?
Is it serving a purpose
Well, it's
in
what
terms of the
the
recording?
better sound quality will be.
Yeah.
No?
No, I'm going to say no.
Yeah, cool.
I reckon it would be weird.
Okay.
Not to say it's wrong,
Mm-hmm.
but it would be weird.
Yep. Okay.
Because here I'm thinking this is the question about what's the norm, what do people expect?
Yeah.
And this goes into the overarching question of branding.
Yeah.
What are you about? Now, if you're auditioning for like corporate, like some sort of corporate gig or like some backing trio Andrew Sisters thing, I don't even know then, you know, but it actually might kind of work.
Yeah.
You know, if your
I
band
guess it
was
also
like
depends on the quality of the camera, right?
in what sense?
Like sound-wise, I guess, right?
Well, that's the thing, and that comes into play. Like the more technology has more features, and the more you have to pay for it to be of a high quality. You can use a mic in a showreel context, but not usually self-test context. Awesome, that makes a lot of sense, Brendan.
Okay, cool. Sorry if I went off course there.
No, that's a beautiful question because this is sort of pointless without knowing how to apply it. Showreel, absolutely. I've actually filmed, not me personally, but I've played for a lot of people who have just hired out a stage, microphone, piano. It has a performance element, has a cabaret focus.
Yeah.
It's the self-test that if there was a microphone chucked in, that I would think that's a bit strange.
Yeah, okay.
But for showreel, yeah, totally.
Sweet.
Any other questions, guys? Just for those playing at home, the programs I use are Logic Pro and Final Cut. Pretty much Logic is it's just the older brother to Garageband. Also the more expensive one. And all the recordings that I do, everything that I work on in terms of sounds, compositions, that sort of stuff goes through Logic Pro. And then with Final Cut, I've got this sync feature, which allows me to sync the audio and the video, as well as if I'm filming two angles, it allows me to sync those into one file so I can play around with both those angles and do some fade-ins and stuff. I think I've come to the end of my little seminar. Of course, there's so much more to talk about, but it's a question of what you guys want to know. I literally auditioned for an Andrew Sisters trio with a mic myself tape. Thanks to Neil. Well, how was that? What was that experience like?
It was fine. I mean, they wanted to see me for a live audition, but then I think something happened and I was interstate and I couldn't make it. And they were like, "Oh, well, we can't see you then." And that was the end of that. So.
Yeah, right. Not being in the room is so hard. I mean, as we know right now, not being in the room is very hard, but it's so interesting how the chances just completely change when you're like, I have to put this video together. The Andrew Sisters thing is interesting because then you've got a full-on branding behind it. The microphone's more an aesthetic. And a lot of the time, when people are recording stuff, the microphone is just purely an aesthetic choice. You know, whatever.
It was definitely a cage mic. It was an old-fashioned vintage cage mic.
Yeah. And I think I've done a show where I was like, oh, cool, we got like these old school mics. And they're like, oh, yeah, no, they're not plugged in. I was like, oh.
Mine was plugged in though. I was actually legitimately using it, but it was also a choice.
That's awesome. What a legend. So there lays that's the bigger question of like, if people like Brendan, Cowrie, Brad will be able to shine more light on, because the landscape, the world that I work in is purely with sound. Not to say, like, it also lays in the believability and the authenticity of sound. So my interest is always about being able to balance technology and balance workflow so that you can create exactly what you're about. Because we are live performers. We're all live performers. You know, that is what we're trained in. That's what we thrive off. We thrive off an audience. We thrive off collaboration. We thrive off relationship. Things that happen on stage, off stage. With the band's off stage, and I'm talking for myself maybe. I don't know what you do, but whatever. So I know I have to remind myself of this, because when I'm just in my room, you know, here just recording a tune, I have to summon that energy up. I have to bring that up. I have to invoke some form of story, emotion, connectivity to the music that I'm playing. And because I need to remind myself that the adrenaline is not going to be there, the reactions are not going to be there, I have to somehow compensate for that, or be aware that my playing will not be as connected if I don't call upon that sort of stuff. So this goes into a much larger question of sort of craftsmanship, you know, like performance craft. What is it about? Like, what are our strengths, and what happens when we get sort of not pigeonholed, sort of just pushed around into these little different settings that we're not used to, particularly around this time with social distancing. A lot of people have gone, I must record now. And I'm going, but you've never done that before in your life. I mean, like, hats off to you, because you're trying something new, but now you're getting so hung up about technology and settings and effects and all this sort of stuff, but you just need to do what you do and do it really well. And it's easy to kind of get kind of down that sort of weird little tunnel, because I catch myself doing all sorts of weird stuff to sound. To me, it's just curiosity, though. I just like to mess with sound and see what happens. All right, guys. We'll start to close up now. Single tapes versus editing multiple clips. Yeah. Do you want to touch on that a little bit, Brendan?
I've just seen a couple of them recently that, like, it's like midway through the song. And I don't know if, like, I definitely have seen people do it in the instance of, like, they don't have a backing track that is their cut, and so they've cut the video to create their cut.
I've never
like,
seen that before.
Yeah, I have. I've just witnessed it.
Sure.
And then people who, like, because again, they might have recorded this at a previous point and they haven't re-recorded. They've used a video and they've just cut it shorter or something.
Right.
Or they've done 2 takes and they like the start of one song, one take, and they like the end of the other, and they haven't redone it. They've just edited it together.
What?
I'd say, yeah, something to avoid. Probably don't do that, particularly for live theatre. Because we're going to be looking at you as a one, like, as a live performance. So we're not going to be editing you on stage.
It's interesting how instantly the mindset changes. As soon as you have a microphone in front of you and recording program or a camera or whatever, the mindset completely goes, it just shifts into this, like, I could do it again, or I could do it again, you know? And then all of a sudden we start editing, and then we start sort of copying, pasting, da-da-da-da. But the objective, again, with Broadway Plugged In, is like, we're going to go through this entire piece from start to finish. Even when we were doing, you know, as Jessica just can attest to this, when we were doing the backing vocal song, the large group, I said, I need you to stand there the whole time. Because I don't want to cut you all up and then have to sort of plop you in and then not have you be acting when I need you to be acting. Because it's so easy to be disillusioned and being like, oh, this is only for sound. It's very easy to kind of trick yourself and think, oh, okay, this is only for the sound product. It's like, no, there's a whole visual component. One of the performers was like, oh, are we filming? And I was like, we were in the room together. We'll set up. There's camera, there's the keyboard, there's a mic, there's lighting. Are we filming? Said, yeah. Yeah. But what would be different if, And if I said no? The editing thing is a big one, especially when you're like, oh, I can add some BVs, I can add this extra thing, I can add this other ornament. The eye, the brain, you know, we love to process things that we can see and hear. They have to be connected. If we hear something that we can't see, it takes a while for us to be like, I'm not really sure about that. Give myself 3 takes, give allowance for redoing, but also some fire under to give full performance every time. Different people works amazingly. I'd love to talk more about this, the psychology of recording.
I want to talk more about this too.
It's such a craft. And as a musician, as a session musician who jumps around different songs and music and has to play all sorts of different things every day, my skill has been to cultivate the ability to get the first take. That is the take. That is what we're doing. And that is Broadband Plugged. You know what I mean?
Dang.
And that comes from, that's in improvisation, playing different styles. I need to be able to inject my essence and my I guess, precision in that one take. So the mind plays a huge part. Obviously, this has turned into Garageband, into like musicianship. You get one shot in the room. Exactly, Brandon. You can't trick yourself into thinking I could just do it again. I also, I'll just leave you with this, and if you guys want to do another session on just sort of the mental game of the performer and recording, I'll definitely be all for that because I'm super passionate about it. If ever you need to test something, if ever you need to check something, you hit record. 30 takes myself days. And you've got to give yourself a break. Like, you drive yourself insane. The thing is, like, your productivity wanes the more you do something.
No, I did it in 2 days. So I did like 25 and 5.
Look, everyone's different. 25 and 5, exactly. Now you're talking. The psychology of just hitting record on your phone, or if I need to practice a piece that I'm auditioning with, when I was playing for Frozen auditions, I was like, Daniela, you're going to be very nervous when you get into the room. What can you do to mitigate against that? Well, firstly, you can practice. Preparation, like that's all you can do. One of my teachers said to me, as soon as nerves come in, 20% off will just be subtracted right off your 100% practice, whatever. I highly paraphrase. But then I hit record on my iPhone because I'm like, okay, and I simulated, this is a backing track for Fixer Upper Dance Break. Played, and then that was my performance. And hitting the record button elicits a feeling in the body that says, this needs to be it. It's just one way of experimenting. And then the next challenge is listen to yourself. I do one, watch it back and either get rid of it or do another, but you'll never get better than your first 2. It's so true. 3 is a good amount. You might be more settled on 2nd or 3rd, but with the Broadband plugged in, I did not get to 4. Most of them I did in 2. And you see the performers kind of being like, ooh, 2? Like, yeah, 2. That's it. You end up sort of hammering the point home, and then by the 3rd, 4th, 5th time, you're very tired, and if the motivation's not there, it's not worth it. My final take ends up being my best because I'm like, this is the last time. Oh, that's a nice way of looking at it. How can your final take be your first take is the question there, you know? How can I make my final take my first take?
That's true. Like, it's like there's a bit of a line of like, you know how you're practicing a song and then you're performing it.
Yes, there is a line. That is exactly it.
Yeah.
And therein lies the subject we need to talk about. The line between rehearsing, practicing, what is practice, and what is performance. Because when I'm sight reading a piece and performing or doing a sound check, I am injecting the exact amount of emotion and energy that I will inject when I perform the song. Thanks, Lauren.
Hi.
So that's a skill. And I'd love to talk more about that, guys.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about it more.
It's very exciting. And when you master your craft to a point that you can deliver the same performance during a rehearsal or a sound check as well as during a performance, you're good. But it takes time, it takes practice, and it takes a real understanding of how the mind works and how we can... if you don't rehearse for me at a performance level, we're having a chat, says Brad. Exactly. But if you don't get pushed, sometimes you don't know what performance level is. But you need to be there. And a lot of people say, oh, I get better on stage. I get better on stage. And I'm like, that's not good enough for me. I can objectively say, okay, sure, the adrenaline's going to kick in, something's going to happen, you will feel elated. Now, the feeling of doing good and actually doing good are two different things. So my baseline mindset is to always watch my emotions in that way. Get no confidence in that statement. I thought Brendan was Brad.
Yeah, I'm getting confused too.
Does this fall into consistency and performance stamina?
Sorry, I was meaning in regard to the I'll get better on stage. Am I like, if you're falling out of your double turn now, you're going to be falling out of your double turn on stage. It's not going to change in the moment. Just because you've characterized your double turn.
Well, exactly. You know what? People do it due to their hiding, their sort of pride, prowess. They're like, oh yeah, I'll get it late. It's fine. It's okay, And you need to push yourself because it's a form of self-sabotage to not perform right then and there. There's a form of self-sabotage because if it's like, I can't do it now, then I'll leave the probability of doing it later. Same for audition, performance level. It's hard, but that's what we're auditioning for. That's what I'm auditioning for. I'm auditioning for, can you enter the acting space, the story space, and the world instantaneously within 16 bars? Do you have the capacity to go, piano introduction, I'm there, done? Because, if you do, I want you.
Would you say that so just say you're about to do a self-tape and you're practicing in the other room and then you step in front of the camera and that's when and obviously you're performing it while you're practicing. Where's the line?
Where are you practicing and when are you recording?
Well, just say I was in the
spare
spare
room.
What is
practice?
The practice is just making sure that I am able, I don't know, I guess it's just grasping the story again and sometimes I find new things in that before I step in front of the camera and then, I don't know.
Now,
I don't know.
Bradley says the line is inside you. So Jessica, you're allowed to find new things. Practice doesn't mean you've got all your shit covered.
Yeah.
Practice means you're flexible enough and you've done the work and you've built your foundations.
Yeah.
But as the actor and as the storyteller and as live performer, you have to have the capacity to explore new choices at any moment.
Yes. Yes.
Performance also doesn't mean you have all your shit together.
I'd also challenge you to, this kind of goes against what we're saying for the number of takes that you take, but maybe while you're exploring this line at the moment, maybe do your first take. Don't think of it as a practice take, but you're recording your first take.
Yeah.
And you might end up using that take. It's got to be at performance level. That might be the best. Yeah. But from the get-go, your practice tape is on camera.
Yeah.
There's a bit of psychology there when I'm working with a singer. And I don't want to sort of reveal my little brain tricks that I do with a performer if I'm recording, but there are certain things that I'll do to ease them in. Because as soon as any organism, any species, any sentient being feels like they're being watched, they shift, they change.
Yeah.
And the recording is an aspect of that. When you're being recorded, filmed, there's an essence of shit, I'm being watched. And I need to be able to ease them. Yep.
Yeah.
I was going to say, people who drop the choreo as soon as the camera comes out in the studio.
Yeah.
It's literally just a mental game.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you can perform that trick for yourself, the thing is, it's exactly what Brad said about being prepared and vulnerable. And as Carrie said, it's a team sport, react. Being prepared and vulnerable. This is how I approach life in the sense that improvisation, being able to react in any given moment. But if I'm so rigid that I feel like it has to be X, Y, Z, then I won't have the flexibility to react in any way. But sometimes I do have to trick myself into being like, oh, I'm just going to hit record now. And as Brad knows and can attest to, I'm shit behind the camera. I hate it. Oh my God, it's such a hard time. COVID has helped me a lot. I shouldn't say that. That sentence was wrong. COVID. That's the wrong sentence. You get the sentiment.
Yeah.
But that's why you guys do that. You guys are all about being sort of traveling off the topic. But one time, Brad and I were filming something, and I just hit record for the whole time. And that was my way of going, I'm just going to hit record, and then I'm just going to be natural, and then I'll just hit everything. But of course, the file was like 70 gig, and I spent the next 12 hours trying to get off the freaking phone. And it was very hard.
That's what I was going to
And
say
the sun went down.
before, with the whole like taking more than you need with your takes. Then then move on to your next challenge, which is now I've got a short list, and then I've got to shortlist that shortlist, and then I've got to shortlist that shortlist, and you've just made triple, quadruple the work, because you're like, oh, but I really like the start of that one.
Yep.
Whereas
you need to be decisive.
Yeah.
if you've got it within your
hey,
three, it's like,
Yeah. No, I
Be
get
decisive.
that.
Be decisive. Always be decisive. We're at time, guys. So this sounds like a potential interesting discussion that maybe just let us know if you might want to, I don't know, I guess, do a little bit more. Maybe. I'm tired, right? I love this stuff. And it's so interesting that a very specific topic about GarageBand starts to unfold into what does it mean to perform, and who are we as live performers, and how we get tricked into becoming this different essence because there's a recording device around us. Yet when we're there alive with an audience and another cast member, we blossom really. And it's hard for the musician. Like, it's hard for me being in a pit, I want to be on stage like you guys. That's why I love Broadway Unplugged. The pit musician life is an odd life. It's all in blacks under a dark room. Anyway, I'm waffling now. You guys are free to go, so yes, keen for that as well. Let's discuss that at 6:30 p.m. Yes, join us at 6:30 tomorrow night with Caitlin as she discusses what does it mean to have your hand up. She's still here. She's not, is she? Can't see her. More discussions. This would be awesome. I agree. Awesome.
Gone.
Yeah, I was just having a dig at her, but that's not funny because she's not here. Same the minute I'm mic'd to the minute I can hear myself. See you, Katie.
Hi, Katie.
Michaela. The minute I can hear myself.
focus on other things that you can hear. Find your cues afterwards.
It's such... Yeah, the body changes in such a funny way as soon as you are conscious of your voice.
Yeah.
And you cannot be conscious of your voice. It is just such the most selfish thing to do. And I don't mean that with any sort of veracity behind it. That's not the right word. Anyway, sounds right. The right sound, but not the right word. No, I know you agree. And that's the thing. It's just like, how do we listen? But listening is bigger. And you know this. I've spoken to you guys a lot about it, and I'll keep going on about it. What is the essence of listening? And it's going to acting in your theatre sports and reacting and engaging. And people think, because I'm a musical director, I'm talking about listening of the ears. And often I'm not. I just need you to be in the room. I need you to open your eyes. I need you to open your heart. And I need you to actually take in the surroundings. Your sound changes immediately.
Yeah.
5 senses anchoring meditation. Well, that's it, though. If you're someone who deals with anxiety, your sensory mindfulness practices are going to be important. It just so happens that when you're actually portraying someone else's character, you've got an extra layer of work to do, because then you have to go into their space. As Brad said, you're all free to go. And I'll stop talking, I guess, because it's meant to be like drinks or something. I don't know. But you know what I'm saying? You have to deal with your own shit.
Yeah.
And be mindful, and then step into the space of the character you're intending to portray. Often, we don't make that delineation. We bring our own shit straight into it. And that's why a lot of my practices go back to breath, meditation, and yoga, because I find that these practices allow the body and the mind to be aligned. And when the body and the mind are aligned, it's like you're a blank canvas to be like, you know what? I know what my shit's about, but I need to be like Alice Ripley next to normal, so I got to go there.
I love
time's wasting, and I need to be despondent, intensely emotional mother.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the reason that it's hard doing that is the difference between having doing a self-tape and an audition all like face to face, it's like you have the tension of like, oh, it's only one, I can only do this one take if it's on one-on-one. But with like self-tapes and stuff like that, I can do it tomorrow, or like I can do it 50 times, sort of stuff. That's why it's like, for me, it's like hard. I don't know, I get better with anxiety and tension going into like the audition room, and they're like, only got one chance, like better be the
Exactly what
best.
Bradley said. see, the thing is, the reliance and the dependency of anxiety and tension is one form of getting into the space that you need to get into, but it's not reliable, as in it's not dependable. Yet the same at the opposite end of the spectrum, if you're completely relaxed and you've just had breakfast or whatever, and you're like, oh, I need to record a self-tape now, and you're like, yeah, and you're so unenergized, it's nothing. How do you find that middle ground that you can turn on the flame yet still be completely relaxed? It's very hard. And for the musician, for example, I don't have story and character to latch onto. I only have mood and emotional, I guess, feeling and sound that I can latch onto. But I found that my negative self-talk and my performance anxiety was best addressed, when I thought about the performer that I was accompanying, because I'm like, I'm serving you, I'm here for you. Okay, and I say that with kindness. Don't put yourself down. It was just like, this is not about you. This is about them. You're there for them. But secondly, the emotion. I had to connect with oral emotion, like the instant emotion that I feel through music instantaneously. And I have to be there every step of the way. And I know when I'm not, I've gone into thought. Just so happens that you guys have full-fledged like human beings to like pretend to be, you know what I mean? That's hard.
I think we kind of touched on it the other day with dance in regard to like some of you struggled to move out of if you had something set and then you moved into something that wasn't set because you were still attached to what you were doing and coming from a place of thought and security rather than approaching with a sense of play.
Play, vulnerability, openness. They're deeper. They're not just acting, and that's the important thing. These are not acting sentiments. They're life. How do you approach the world? How do you go for coffee in the morning? How do you approach the person next to you? How much space do you have to react in the way that you feel is most true to you and authentic at the time? Is the anxiety taking over? Am I reacting? Are my thought processes going? Have I stopped feeling into the ground, you know? So much.
Michaela, I was just going to say, Michaela, maybe play around with, like, it might absolutely not resound with you whatsoever, but what I said about having the alter ego of yourself slightly for different fields, just because it's you, but it's not you, and it might take you slightly out of your head. Don't put weight into it of, I've got to do this, because then you're still in your head. But if you're like, oh, well, how would Michaela, spelt differently, who is really ill in this area, like, how would she respond to this situation? Yeah. It's exactly the spelling I was thinking of.
But isn't it hard as well to have that mindset of like, if you were in a dance audition type of scenario where, oh, I have to do a double turn, but I can't do a double turn, I'll just use my alter ego to do the double turn, but you still can't do it.
But I'd say that you need to, I'd say you need to use your alter ego in a rehearsal setting, because potentially Rayhan is still struggling with a double turn, but Ray approaches his double turn with confidence. And then by approaching that turn with confidence, you fix the things that are stopping that turn. Because never underestimate how much again, the mindset that you go into something is what is stopping it. You would be worrying about the fact that you are struggling with a double token example is when I was in a Vita Ampro in New Zealand, there was this group of female ensemble that would just always like screw in their turns up. So after warm up, they would all practice their turn. And they're like, oh, I keep falling out. I'm all like, well, stop practicing it every day and stop giving it the weight that this is the be all and end all. It's one turn, it happens, and we move on. Like, the show doesn't stop when you fall out of that turn.
Yeah.
Like, and because you've given it the control, it's never going to sort itself out.
Same with the voice. The exact same with the voice.
Yeah, fair.
But if you like, because you might fix some of your technical problems by approaching it separately, and then your alter ego and you might be slightly further away. And then it's just the process of bringing them together. So then, oh, well, actually, Ray and Rayhan are the same person, and we're fine, and we can both nail a triple now. So, bite me.
You're referring to like higher self stuff.
Probably.
Yeah.
Can I just say another something? I feel like
yes.
I feel like sometimes
That's happening behind you.
Am I cutting out or?
No.
We're laughing.
Right, you're fine.
Okay. Oh God, now what was I going to say? So I find that someone gave me advice on just getting used to the sound of your voice, like just maybe even making like a video log every day and seeing yourself on camera by doing that and just getting used to yourself, what you look like, how you react to things, and just being like, yep, that's me, that's my voice, and like just like accepting it, and instead of it becoming so foreign when you're hearing it in sparse encounters. Pardon?
So one of the biggest things here is not toxic positivity. So run away from toxic positivity on, you've got to love your voice. No, you have to accept your voice. You have to accept that that's what it is, and it's not going to change, and that's fine. And if you want to go and do things about it, that's fine. It's the same as like, oh my God, you've got to love your body. No, you don't. You have to accept that that's your body, and that's fine.
Neutrality is much more
achievable. Yes, but it's what it is. Like, I don't know. I don't really love it or not love it. I just am like, this is how I am, and this is the instrument I own, and here it is. And if it's not right for this, that's fine. You're right for something else.
Brad is singing all the time.
Right.
So that's a wonderful idea.
What did you say? Sorry.
I also just sing into a mirror to know what I look like and know what my face looks like. I've done it for like more than half my life. So I know how to, I know what I look like when I make certain expressions. You know, I know what I'm putting out there and what reaction that's going to get.
So similar principle to that idea of filming yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Brad
filming
makes
is
all the time.
Also, like,
these guys.
I'm not the one who makes sound all this.
I was going to say, like, matching what you're feeling and then seeing how that reads, because sometimes, like, obviously we want you to feel, we want to, but sometimes the way that you feel something will read in a different way. So that's really important when, like, music, like, video. So, like, I'm sure a few of the dancers here can attest to, like, feeling your oats well and truly, thinking that you're nailing it, and you watch the video and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Or you're like, wow, actually, I was feeling kind of like meh about that, and I'm quite enjoying the way that I'm doing that. Or, oh, I didn't know that that's the line that I created. I felt like I was creating a different line. And I think that's important. Like, it's a tool.
On a journey, you can figure it out.
That's why there's mirrors in a studio. And it's also important to know if you use those mirrors or if you don't. Because I don't think I use mirrors anywhere near enough. But now that I'm in on Zoom classes, I'm like, well, I don't look at myself, so I have no clue what I'm doing. So I've started setting my phone up so that I know what I'm doing. Like it's interesting. Use the tools.
Mm-hmm.
Don't look at yourself when you walk into the audition room. That drives me mental. The first thing you just did was check yourself out in the mirror. And I just said hello to you. What's going on?
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine. Yeah, I'm good. You're good.
I
You're good.
get it, but like... Oh, man. I just love watching it. I love being behind the piano because you just see everything.
Someone's not into it.
She left it a long time ago.
Yeah, I didn't know if you went. It's under the flags. Under the flags.
Making silly sounds can be the best way to just find expression and acceptance in the voice as well. I do it all the time. Great time.
All right, well, this has been lovely.
Yeah, we can sort of like transfer over to like the fun part of the night now, so we can just lighten it up.
Well, I'm gonna go.
20 minutes later.
Bye, guys.
I'm gonna go too.
Bye, me too.
Bye.
Yeah, me too.
Thanks for the session.
Thank you.
Bye.
Guys, let's stop recording too.
Bye, guys. That was awesome. Thank you.